Hi, Josh. Hi, Beth. Welcome to this next episode of the Self Leadership Podcast. Beth, it's fantastic to have you here. And I would love to kick us off by asking you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, no problem. Hi, guys. My name's Beth. I'm British. I'm 33 years old, and I would describe myself in three ways for this. So, firstly, I'm an engineer. I studied chemical engineering at university, which is how I know Anna. We are university friends. And when I graduated, I went into the oil and gas industry. So I moved to Aberdeen, which is the oil capital of the UK, and worked there as a petroleum engineer for 10 years. So that's where I met my husband. We got married there. We bought our first house there. But over the past few years, we were both getting kind of gradually more and more concerned about the future of the industry. It's not very popular with government. Government policy doesn't really promote much investment in that particular industry. So we were starting to feel a bit understimulated and like we didn't really have much of a future in the UK. So my husband had the opportunity to look at moves internationally. I didn't, unfortunately, but he was successful and managed to get a position abroad. So last year in October, I moved with him to Angola. So I quit my job, we sold our house, and we are now expats. So that's the second way that I would describe myself. And yeah, Angola could not be more different to Aberdeen in any way. So it's been a bit of a learning curve, and the first month was very difficult, bit of a shock to the system, but we're kind of both getting into the swing of things now, and it's feeling a lot more manageable. And it's been a great life experience. Like, I'm getting so much out of it. So that's been awesome. And then the third way I describe myself is as a triathlete. So in Aberdeen, it's a great place to be outdoors. And I took up triathlon around 8 years ago now. I just kind of did it on a whim. One day there was a local race and I just got really hooked and it kind of took over my life. So for the past 8 years, I've been racing at various different levels, but I've represented the UK at European and international level at the half Ironman distance. And then more recently, I was doing Ironman. So for those who don't know, triathlon is swim, bike, run continuously. And Ironman is the longest distance you can do. And it's very long. It's a 3.8 kilometer swim, a 180 kilometer bike, and then a 42 kilometer run off the back of that. And I was so scared of doing that. It took me years and years to build up the courage to do it. But I entered and successfully completed my first one at the end of 2024. And then I knew that I could beat my time, and I knew that we were probably going to be moving in 2025. So I kind of went all in this time last year and really pushed and managed to get like a massive PB at a race I did in Copenhagen in August last year. All of my holidays up till this point have been for racing and training triathlon. So yeah, it's a big part of my life. So yeah, that's me, engineer, expat, and triathlete. There you go.
What an intro. What an intro. It's an unusual definition of holiday, I would say, but all power to you. All power to you. I was thinking many things during your introduction, Beth. The one thing I was thinking is, which was the hardest? Which pushed you the most? The degree, the move, or the Ironman?
Oh, it's hard. Like, they all push you in different ways. And you learn things about yourself from each and every one of them. I think that triathlon's actually taught me a lot about life, though. I think that it teaches you to be like robust and determined and driven in a way that academia and a job doesn't necessarily do. So probably life-wise, I've probably found that like the hardest but the most rewarding. But they've all been very, very difficult. University was really tough for me. I look back and I'm like, I don't think I could do that again. But it's good to look back on and know that you can get through hard things. Yeah, they've all been hard. I feel like in life, nothing that's not worth doing is easy. Like, it's if you think it's very difficult and hard, then chances are you should probably try and do it, because you'll probably get a lot more from that than just sitting by and coasting by and finding things easy all the time. So I love a challenge, and I definitely don't shy away from challenges. And yeah, everything has been very difficult in different ways, but I'm a much stronger person as a result of all of those experiences that I've had in my life.
literally as well. Literally
Yeah.
stronger, no doubt, no doubt. But there's so much I wanted to get into, which I'm sure we'll cover the kind of practicalities of many of these things during the rest of the conversation. So I was just intrigued about the sense of adventure and the move to Angola as well. It's seems like a seismic move in terms of just like difference from Scotland. I assume that there's some stark differences. So like one thing that really interests me is like, what is one thing that you think Angola offers that you wishes we could have here in the UK, for example? Like, what would be something that Aberdeen would have benefited from that Angola offers, and vice versa?
So probably a couple of things. The main thing that has really hit home to me as a result of coming somewhere like Angola is how lucky and privileged I am to have had the opportunities that I have had in my life up till this point. Most people in Angola have nothing. They don't have electricity, they don't have access to clean water. I think the average salary is something crazy, like $100 a month. So these people are literally just like day-to-day surviving. Even things like basic levels of literacy don't really exist here. Like the government spends more money on fuel subsidies than they do on education and health in Angola. So if you compare that to the opportunities that I've had in my upbringing in the UK or people in Europe and probably in West generally speaking, you take all of that for granted. Like you take an education for granted, you know, you take a university degree for granted, you take healthcare for granted. And I think people get very bogged down in like feeling miserable about like the fact that they're bored in their lives, or I don't know, they don't like the fact that someone like drove in front of them at a red light or something, you know? And it's literally so inconsequential when you compare that to people just surviving. Like this podcast, the self-leadership podcast, we're so fortunate to be able to practice self-leadership because we have all these opportunities available to us and we can live intentionally because we have the opportunity to do that. Most people that I see in Angola, they can't do that. Like they just have to survive. So it's really hit home to me how fortunate I am, and that's kind of given me more of an incentive to really make the most of this opportunity I have in my life and the options that I have, because other people have literally nothing. So that's been very powerful for me and a big difference. The second thing is probably how, despite all of this, despite how little people have, they are so warm and friendly and kind, and they would do anything to help you. Like they speak Portuguese here, and I've been doing Portuguese lessons, and just the ability to speak a bit of Portuguese goes such a long way, because if you go and have a few sentences with someone in Portuguese, you're like their best friend here. Like it's like a mark of respect that you've bothered to try and communicate with them. In the UK, no one is really that fussed about how you are, what you're doing, you know, how you interact with them. There isn't that sense of human connection. In Angola, it's so crazy how kind people are, and people have nothing, but they'll do anything they can for you. And that's such a lovely part of the culture here. Like I would say that Angola's possibly the friendliest country I've ever been to, despite the abject conditions that most people live in. So that's been really nice, and something that I love about living here is how warm everyone is.
Such powerful reflections. Thank you so much for sharing. And Beth, you've touched upon our privilege to be able to live intentionally and to take the time to take that step back and really think about, okay, how do we want to live and where do we want things to go? And so I'm really curious to hear, what exactly does it mean for you to live intentionally, and what are you moving towards in your intentional life?
Okay, so to me, living intentionally, I've said already it's a privilege, but it's taking responsibility of how you feel in your life and your happiness, in essence. So to me, it's like a process of inward reflection and kind of listening to your gut instinct. So you need to have awareness of how you're feeling. I think in society in general, especially Western society, it's quite difficult because everyone kind of is pushed along a path. Like you go to school, you go to university, you get a job, you work for the rest of your life and then that's it. And you're kind of, I feel like you're prompted through life to a certain extent. Like you go to school, you pick the subjects you're going to study, you think about if you want to do further education, you pick your degree, you get a job. Cool. You don't have to do much thinking about how you're feeling at any of those stages, aside from what do I want to do to make money. And once that's finished and you're in your job situation, you're kind of left and there's no one to prompt you as to how you're feeling. Are you happy? What do you want in your life? So living intentionally is you doing that to yourself, in essence, and you taking responsibility for that and how you're feeling. So right now, my life is very different to how it was in the UK. Like I worked 9 till 5, I raced and trained triathlons. That was my life. And I loved it. It was great. I wasn't probably super happy in my work life. That's why we chose to leave. But I was so happy in my personal life that it didn't necessarily matter to me so much that I wasn't feeling that fulfilled professionally. But now I don't really have any of that. Like I do have a job, but it's a part-time job for an Angolan company. The Angolan culture is very different to the British culture. It's much more kind of relaxed, I would say. And I don't have all these big triathlons to do because the infrastructure doesn't lend itself well to training for triathlons. And also naturally I'd kind of got to a point in my life where I was probably ready to move on and do something else because I achieved kind of what I'd wanted to achieve in the triathlon space. And there's only so many like 15-16 hour weeks of training you can do in your life before you're like, why am I doing this now? Actually, like it's not so fun anymore. So my life now is completely different and I'm looking more at kind of making the most of the experience. So instead of just being busy all the time, I have a lot more free time now because I work part-time and it gives me time to study Portuguese, to travel. Like we've been able to go to Namibia, South Africa. I've done 2 trips in Angola. These are places that I never thought that I would even go to in my life, you know? And now I'm living here and I have this access to all this stuff that I would never ordinarily experience. And this also isn't forever. This is like a 3-year posting and we're already like halfway through the first year. So to me, it's like my aim now is just to like enjoy life, enjoy this experience, feel like I'm going to leave Angola having made the very most of like every minute because I won't get this again. So that's very different like to my life before where there was so much structure and now I don't really have the structure, but I have the freedom and I'm feeling much happier as a result of being able to just kind of go with the flow and the only expectation is making to things. So yeah, that's to answer your question as to where I'm going. That's kind of where I'm going right now.
I mean, I'm sure this wasn't the intention of your answer, but you're selling it to me. But I'm sold. I'm sold. I'll be there soon.
Yeah, I mean,
It sounds great.
like the first month was honestly awful, but once you get through that, you know, like nothing. I found this saying that really helped. I was looking for like motivational sayings at this time because like we'd arrived, I didn't know anybody, I didn't speak the language. It's not safe enough to wander around by yourself, so you need to have a car and a driver, which we didn't have. So my husband was at work all day and he was the only person I saw when he came home in the evening. So I felt like super isolated and alone and I didn't know what to do. So I was looking at motivational quotes and I found this really good one that is everything is hard before it is easy. And that really helped me, like short-term pain for long-term gain. And that's like a dim and distant memory now. But yeah, it was really hard. But now, and there are still days where I'm like, God, this is awful. But generally speaking, the pros massively outweigh the cons. And, you know, I haven't met many people who've been to Angola, let alone lived here. So I just feel very privileged that I've been given this opportunity and I feel like it's my duty to make the most of it. A bit like with life in general, life is like a gift at the end of the day and it's up to you to make the most of it. So yeah.
100%. The only thing I know about Angola is I feel like I could describe the flag reasonably confident, but I will attribute that to my son as opposed to me. It has a leg on it or an arm, I think, and like
it's got a machete.
Oh, okay, machete. Well, it looks like a leg, but yeah, fine. Machete it is.
Yeah, it's got a machete and like a kind of half a cog wheel and a star.
Yeah,
it's like communist and it's like red and black.
Yeah.
But yeah, we see it all the time. They're very, very patriotic here. So if anything can have the flag on, it has the flag on. So yes.
There you go. Well, shout out Jude for your flag knowledge. It's helped me in this conversation. What I wanted to ask you, Beth, was your answer to Anna's question was so wonderfully put. And I wanted to understand one of the themes that we've got from this conversation is typically something happens or someone's answer that question comes to them at a certain point in their life. So what I wanted to understand was like, where did that definition come to you? At what point? Was it a moment? Was it a series of moments? Did you go explore for it? Like, how did you come across this wonderful explanation that you gave?
I was really lucky as a child that we lived abroad a few times. My dad was also in the oil and gas industry. We moved to Rio de Janeiro when I was 4 years old, and we were there for 4 years, and then we were in Copenhagen for a bit, and then we came back to Aberdeen. So I was very lucky that I had parents that always said yes to opportunities and always wanted to see what was out there. So I think that rubbed off on me. But generally speaking, I've always been a very driven and goal-oriented person, and I've always had a lot of passion for making the most of a situation. So I think a lot of it is personality driven, and then also having lots of support from my family, and then in turn being surrounded by similar people, because I guess if you're a passionate person that wants to make the most of opportunities, you tend to be drawn to people who are like that too. And then it's kind of normalized. Like if you spent time with people who weren't interested in traveling or leaving the UK or like less adventurous, maybe you would feel like that's not really something that you could achieve. But I've been really fortunate in my life that I've always been surrounded by people that have wanted to go and make something of their life. And it was normalized to me that I would travel and live abroad. And it was a bit of a frustration of mine when I joined the industry that all those opportunities were kind of shut down, because I joined in a downturn and it's kind of always been a downturn since then. So yeah, and it's harder and harder now to find expat opportunities because they cost so much money. So like my husband is very good at his job. He's done really well to get the opportunity, but we are lucky as well that came about. So yeah, I think it's just a few different factors, really.
And one last question from me before we move on to your practices. And that is, you've described yourself as a super driven, super goal-oriented person, super hardworking person. And, I got to witness that when we were at university together. And obviously that was an important component in getting you to all of your successes in relation to triathlon. I mean, I still remember it as if it was yesterday when I told you that I, very casually started running and you were like, oh, perfect, let's do a half marathon together, as if it was just like a regular Sunday walk.
Okay.
I remember it so distinctly. And thanks to you, I did do it and we did it, which was incredible. But where I'm going with this is how you're describing your life in Angola now is you've got more freedom, there's more time, there's less to do. It sounds like there's more focus on being rather than doing. And I'm wondering, has it been partially difficult for you to surrender into that? Has that super driven hyperachiever been knocking at your door sometimes saying, hey, what is this? And if so, how have you been stepping into conversation with that hyperachiever of yours and getting it to embrace this newfound freedom?
Yeah, so it's something I struggle with all the time, actually. There are days where I'm like, what are you doing? Why don't you have a full-time job with a big oil company here? Like, your husband's furthering his career. Why aren't you doing that to you? Like, it's something that is always going on in my head. But I think that the opportunity to be here and be lucky enough that I don't actually have to work full time if I don't want to, that doesn't come around very often. And I look at my husband and he works very long hours and I don't feel like he's getting as much of an understanding of Angola as I am. So that helps me a bit because although I feel like I'm not necessarily pushing myself professionally here, I feel like I'm really getting the most out of this life opportunity. And because it's a 3-year period, there's like an end in sight. Taking 3 years out of my career isn't really a deal breaker. Like I know people who took like 10 years out to have children and they're now like big managers in big companies. And actually they kind of say that was helpful for them because they had a bit of a reset. Because it's very easy to just like carry on doing something over and over again and burn yourself out or end up in a position that you're not happy with because you've not had the time to take a step back and reflect on what you want. Like I'm kind of viewing this time as like I'm developing myself in other areas, particularly with the language. So I'm fully committing myself to learning Portuguese in the 6, 7 months I've been here. Like it's kind of like an intermediate level, like, and it's so rewarding. I love speaking to people in Portuguese because it like uses a different part of your brain languages. Like, you know this, Anna. Anna speaks like 7 languages fluently, if people didn't already know this. But I would liken it to like learning a musical instrument or something. It's like a different part of your brain, which was not getting used at all when I was working in a conventional professional environment. So I kind of trade off these things all the time. And when I have these thoughts like, oh, why aren't you focusing on moving forwards in your career? I take a step back and go, well, you only get this time once. And why would you waste that by spending time in a job that you may or may not like when you can do this in 3 years' time, So that's how I'm managing it. And I'm just grateful because I look back and I think I loved being busy and I loved training all the time, but I didn't have time to like see my friends very much, like, or randomly go out for lunch with somebody. But I can do that now, and that's lovely. It's really nice to just enjoy people's company without time pressure. That's kind of a luxury for me that I didn't have. So there are these other elements that I really, really enjoy that I know that I potentially won't have again in future. So I'm just trying to make the most of all of those differences and then be kind to myself when I feel like I'm not developing in the conventional way, because I know that I am in other areas.
Well, that sounds beautifully intentional. And I also love how a few times now you've mentioned gratitude and how grateful you feel for many different things, actually. And that's such a powerful energy to step into, right? The energy of gratitude, because it's incredibly uplifting. And if anything, it draws more positivity towards us. So I just wanted to say that I love how it keeps coming through as a recurring theme in what you're saying. But now, without further ado, Beth, would you be so kind as to share your first self-leadership practice with us?
Yes. So I've kind of alluded to it already, but I'm a very goal-oriented person. So the first step for me for living intentionally is deciding what I want and then working towards that. And I'm quite an objective person. So I like right now, I want to be almost fluent in Portuguese in a year. So that's what I'm working towards. In the past, it was I want to do an Ironman in this time, or I want to get this mark in my degree. I want to get this job in this company. Like that's always, I need something tangible to focus on. I'm not very good at kind of not having a goal because I feel really redundant. I'm the kind of person that sometimes it takes me a while to fully commit to a goal. Like I have ideas in my head about what my goals could be. But once I've decided that I'm doing that goal, like I'm doing that goal, like I'm achieving that goal, like, and nothing's really going to stop me from achieving that goal. Like my dad's always like, you're just a lucky person. But I'm like, Dad, like it's hard work, you know? So I'm very like laser focused once I decide what I want to do. And that's kind of what I live for. Like I love pushing myself. Like one of the reasons that I decided to do an Ironman is because I didn't think I could do it. So I was like so scared. I had like nerves in my stomach. I'd done all the training and I was standing on that start line and I was like crying with fear because I was like, this is ridiculous. This is insane. How can I do this? And it's like, it didn't matter that the logical part of my brain was saying, but you've done triathlon for like so long and you've done races that are still long and you've done well and you've done all the training and your experience. Like my emotional part of me was just like, no way, like abandon shit, don't do it. But then when you achieve the goal, you feel like you can't, that's like the best feeling ever. If you've done something and you think you can't do it, like you literally feel like, I just live for that feeling. It's so addictive. So yeah, set the goal, ask yourself what you want. And if you're scared of it, probably go for that, because you're going to get so much more out of your experience if you achieve something that you think you can't do.
Amazing. Yeah, I feel energized listening to your answer there. To be fair, I feel like I would put myself in that category as well. And my question is kind of a follow up to that. The question I wanted to ask you is, like, how do you manage the relationship with the goal itself? And the reason I ask that as a question is because through these conversations we've had a whole spectrum of answers towards like managing relationships towards outcomes, and some people really identify with the goal itself. Some people have tried to do the complete opposite and kind of completely remove themselves from goals, and a lot in between as well. So how do you manage that relationship? Is it about the outcome? Is it about the pursuit? Like, I don't want to answer it for you, so I'll just ask the question, but I wanted to give the context as well.
For me, it's about the goal, but you have to go through the pursuit to get to the goal. And that whole process is the most fulfilling process. Like, that's where you learn the most. That's where you get the most out of yourself. Like, you can't set a goal and then be like, great, I'll achieve that tomorrow, without any effort. Like, it's got to be something that pushes you. And the process by which you get there is where you have the most growth, I would say. Like, to give an example, like with the Ironmans, for instance, like when I started triathlon, I was just doing like local small triathlons. I didn't even think that Ironman was a thing. Like, I hadn't even really heard of it, And then because I'd done a couple of triathlons and I enjoyed them, I wanted to get faster. So I got a bit faster. And then I was like, oh, well, actually, maybe I could do a longer race, which means I probably need to train more, which means I maybe need to get a coach because I don't know how much swimming or bike riding or running I should be doing. So then you get a coach. And then gradually, like, as you start doing more bit by bit, you get faster, you get more confident. You then think, oh, I can enter a half Ironman, which is like a really big race, and I can maybe go abroad for that. And then all of a sudden, you get to this point where it's normal to run a half marathon on a Sunday without any training, because you think that like that's just normal for you. Or like, to me, it sounds ridiculous, but like any bike ride less than 4 hours long is like not worth doing for me, because I'm so used to doing long hours of training. Like, that's just what I'm used to. But there's no way that Beth, who started a small triathlon in like a park in Aberdeenshire, could be like that now without the process. And yeah, it's definitely the process where you learn the most about yourself. So to me, like, you need the goal, but the process is where you get the most growth out of yourself. So they kind of go hand in hand, but I don't think about the process until I set the goal.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I have one question before I hand over to Anna, because I can see she's itching to ask something as well. Let me get to the flip of this then and ask you about the relationship with failure, because obviously we've heard a lot about these incredible goals and the work you've put in to achieve them, and you obviously have earned every right to bask in that glory. How do you manage your relationship with failure? Is there anything that you've done that you haven't been able to tick off or celebrate yet, and how do you handle that if it happens?
I'm rubbish with failure. I'm really hard on myself. I have like really high standards. So if I put lots of effort in and I don't achieve it, which has happened several times, I've done triathlon races, or I've like gone for job interviews and I've not got the results, or I've not got the position. And it's very easy to sit there and be like, well, I'm not good enough. Like, I suck. It's all on me, and I'm crap. But I think that what I would say to that is that even if you fail, you're still better off than you were if you hadn't even tried. I talk about triathlon all the time, sorry, but it's such a good like illustration of things in practice. Like when I first started, I progressed super quickly because I'd never done any training before. So I was just getting faster and faster and faster. And then there came a point where I didn't get faster anymore, but I was doing more training. And I was like, I'm a failure. And my coach was like, no, you're not a failure. Actually, your endurance is much better now. Like you can run for longer for less effort than you could before. It's just that you're not going faster, but you're much fitter. And then you're like, oh, actually, yeah, that's true. And like stuff that like running 10K used to feel impossible. Now running 10K for me is like, just a normal activity. And I would never have got there if I'd given up at the point that I wasn't getting faster at running. Like that would have just not happened anymore. I think it's important to fail because it, like, for me anyway, it's helped me learn to be kinder to myself because people fail all the time. There's no point beating yourself up about it. It's been helpful for me to recognize that about myself and try and be kinder to myself. But as a result of trying and failing, I'm better off than I was if I hadn't tried.
A former coach of mine, she always said, let's change the word. Let's, instead of calling it failure, call it feedback, because that's ultimately what it is, right? It's giving you information as to where there's still room for improvement or room for doing something differently, trying something new. And I actually really like that reframe because it's less judgmental in the sense of it's less about categorizing what you did as a success or not as a success. And it's more about, hey, you're getting more information. But yes, the question that I really wanted to ask, as Josh rightly spotted, is by the sounds of it, you're obviously very good with being disciplined. And at the same time, what I'm hearing you say is that with triathlon, and probably with the other most important things in your life, there's also been a sense of flow. You joined your local triathlon club, you tried it without any expectations, without thinking about it too much. It felt good, it went well. And so you took the next step. That also felt good, went well, and it kind of kept going and going like that. I guess my question is that a fair assessment? And how important do you personally view flow and things being aligned in order to achieve your goals?
Yeah, so there is probably an element of flow in that it wasn't my decision to do a triathlon. I'd always been quite, I would say I'd been a sporty child, but my family were not sporty. Like I wasn't brought up with sporty parents. I just like had a lot of energy, and I was big into horse riding when I was younger and put all my energy into that. And then when I was at university, as I alluded to before, I found it really difficult. But in the last year, I kind of worked out what I had to do to get the result I needed. And then I was like, screw it, just enjoy your last year. Like, don't try and make the most of this last year. So I took up rowing and I took up modern pentathlon, which is very niche. It's how they used to train the military. So fencing, swimming, show jumping, so that's where the horse riding came in, and then like a combined run and shoot. So I'd done a bit of swimming, I'd gotten into running again, I'd kind of done running on and off as a teenager. And then it wasn't till I met my husband who was into running, not big into running, like just to keep fit, but he had decided that he wanted to try a triathlon. And I remember saying to him, I'll do the swimming with you, but I don't want to do a triathlon. Like, it doesn't interest me at all. And then he bought himself a bike, and I was like, cool, I'm not doing triathlon, I'm just going to swim and run. And then he entered a race, and I was like, okay, actually, maybe I will get a bike, maybe I will do a triathlon. And then after that, it kind of just like took over because I loved it. It was so fun, and I loved the way it made me feel, and it really helped regulate a lot of things for me. Like, I would refer to myself as a driven person, but I'm quite anxious. I get a lot of anxiety. And I found that exercise really helped take me out of my own head, and things that I'd find very overwhelming. When I'd gone for a bike ride or a run, I'd come back and I wouldn't feel like that anymore. And it meant that I was hungry for food and I slept really well because I was tired. Like all these things that it just helped regulate me in my day-to-day life. So it just made me feel better. And then, yeah, one thing led to another. And we both, I think as well, because my husband did it too, we sort of supported each other through it. Like, I think if I hadn't been with him and he hadn't introduced me to triathlon, there's a very good chance that I wouldn't have done it, which seems crazy now because I'm so far down that road. But yeah, there's probably an element of like the opportunity found me, but then I made the most of the opportunity. A bit like with the Angola thing, it's like, you know, we kind of thought it would be nice to travel abroad, but we didn't really know how feasible it would be, and we definitely wouldn't have thought we'd be living in Angola, you know. So there's definitely an element of things finding you, but then I guess you recognizing that they're opportunities and then taking them,
Yeah.
rather than letting them pass you by.
That makes a heap of sense. With that, shall we move on to self-leadership practice number 2?
Yes. So for me, once you've set the goal, you need to come up with a process to help you get to that goal. So it's all about, for me, it's time management, basically. And I've already alluded to the fact that I'm an anxious person. If I don't have a plan of how I can get from A to B, I just stress out about it and I can't have a nice time. So like, I remember when I was doing my exams at school, I was very worried about being able to revise enough. So my dad sat me down and we built like a spreadsheet together and like laid out all the weeks I had between now and my exam, just to like visually see that I had time to do it. And if I did this percentage of this on this day and that of that day, I would cover everything I would need to do to get to that goal. And as soon as I saw that, I was fine. I was like, great, cool, I know what I'm doing. I don't need to worry anymore. And it's the same with anything. If you want like a promotion at work, or if you want to learn a new language, you need to look at your schedule and work out when you can actually commit time to that and at what point. Once that's laid out, it's really clear then what you have to do, I find. And then you can just enjoy the process as a result of being stressed about being able to even do it in the first place. Because setting the goal is quite easy. Well, it is and it isn't, in terms of like committing to a goal can be hard. But once you say, like, anyone can say they're going to run a marathon, but if they don't do the training, they can't run the marathon. And that's where the time management comes in, you know, like, how do I get there? Time management is super important, I think.
What does that look like practically? Because you mentioned, obviously, you are a goal-oriented person, so one would assume that you've probably got a few things moving along at any one time. You sound busy with lots of different things. So, like, how do you actually manage this practically? Is it like, do you look at goal by goal? Is it done kind of all together in parallel, and then you kind of follow this one process? Like, how do you actually operate this?
So I think with sport, especially if you were doing like an Ironman. So some people do Ironmans off the back, like with no training, which is really cool. That's not the approach I took. But it's almost like you probably need to know, like, if I've entered this race on this date, I need to make sure that I can swim the distance, bike the distance, run the distance, probably a few weeks before that. So maybe I need to do some long bike rides with a run afterwards to check that I'm fit enough to do that, but also to practice things like your race nutrition, because you need to eat on the bike and stuff when you're doing this, otherwise you'll run out of energy. You kind of work back. So yeah, you have like goals along the way to help you achieve the goal, and you need to work out what those are and when they should fit into a schedule. So for triathlon, I had a coach that helped me with that. Like, I couldn't work that out myself. And I mean, maybe I could now, having had more experience, but I also was just such a busy person. I didn't really have time to sit and work that out myself. And I'd probably overthink it all and tie myself in knots. So I made the decision to pay somebody to do that for me who had the knowledge. And that took a lot of the like stress and anxiety away. Because when you're being advised by someone who is an expert, you don't have to worry about the advice they're giving you. So yeah, like, make mini goals along the way. And if you're not sure, ask other people for help.
Makes sense. And are you still using this in a spreadsheet a lot of the time, like your dad showed you?
I have one for triathlon, yeah. Like I have, but it looks like a spreadsheet, but it's like an organizer. It looks like a calendar. You put like sessions in and write notes and stuff. I don't really need it so much in my day-to-day life now. Like, I have I know that with Portuguese, for instance, I do like 3 lessons a week. The courses are about 6 weeks long. You have an exam at the end of the course. So you kind of know roughly where you'll be level-wise at what point. But I do use a calendar. Like, I have to, because it takes the stress away completely from a situation. If I can see how I'm going to get from A to B, especially, I find it very powerful when it's actually in your face on some kind of picture. For some reason, that I just find that really helpful.
It would be a lot to carry, wouldn't it? I think that's how I think about it as well. And hearing you say it, like if it wasn't in a calendar or in a spreadsheet, like it's a lot to store and carry all of the time.
Yeah.
And like you said,
Yeah.
you already have this. You're an anxious person, and we don't need more things. I feel to think about. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we've had setting the goal, we've had the time management and the planning to get or to help you get from A to B. What is self-leadership practice number 3, Beth?
So it's self-discipline, which you've already kind of mentioned earlier. But yeah, once you have the goal, you know how you're meant to get there. It's up to you to do the work. And unfortunately in life, you have to put work in to get results, unless you're like, I don't know, Jesus or something. So yeah, it's forcing yourself to do what you've committed to, in essence. And triathlon's a great example of this, because there are so many days where you don't want to do the training. Like, you know, if you've had a busy day at work, or you're feeling a bit under the weather, or the weather's rubbish outside. Because I overthink a lot, and I've become more aware of that as I've got older in my life, I find it very powerful to make the decision to just not think about, like, just ignore what my brain is saying. So triathlon is excellent for that, because so many times my brain has said, you can't do this, it's going to be hard, you're not going to enjoy it, just don't do it. And I've gone, nah, I'm just ignoring you, and I've done it. And then you're like, haha, told you that I could do it, and you said I couldn't do it. Just doing the Ironman, you've been on your bike for like 5 hours, you've done a swim for an hour, you've then got to run a marathon. The best advice I can give to somebody who's doing an Ironman is ignore what your brain is saying, because as soon as you get off that bike, your body is like, oh God, please, can we just stop doing whatever we're doing now? And you've got to run a marathon, yeah? So you need to just completely ignore what you're thinking, because the first few kilometers, you're like, this is hell. I hate it. Why have I done this? But then after like that initial period, you're suddenly like, this is actually really good, and we're doing okay, and it's fine. And you have this complete up and down. It's crazy. Like, psychology is insane, like, in terms of how powerful and how disruptive the brain can be at the same time. Like the runs I've done off a bike in a race, I go from like here to here all the time. Like, you're literally like, I want to die. This is the best thing ever. Oh my God, I can't survive this. Yes, I can. Like, it's just, and like nothing's really changed. Like, you've not eaten something, you've not seen something different. It's just your brain is like, like the whole time. Like I read something, you don't quote me on it, but it's something like hardly anyone gets to their limit of exhaustion, because the brain doesn't let them do that, because it's like a self-defense mechanism. So when your brain is telling you you can't run anymore, you've actually still got like 30% energy left. So all of it is a mind game, all of it. And what I've realized is, almost in every single point in my life, actually, whenever my brain says that I shouldn't do it, I can, and I can continue, and it's worth continuing, because like with triathlon in particular, my brain gave up like halfway through the swim, and I'm still like, I'm 9 hours later now, and I've done it, you know, and I feel okay. But it's remarkable as well, because you cross the finish line, and it's like your body then breaks. So it's like, if you had another kilometer to go, you wouldn't make it. But for whatever reason, your body is like, I can get through this 42 kilometers after having done all this insane stuff before, and that's fine. But you know, like if I stop for a walk on the run, I could then continue. But when you get to the finish line, it's like, no, that's it now. So then it's like the mind and body connect, and you're like, cool, yeah, we've mutually accepted that this is it now. Yeah, self-discipline. Just, even if you don't want to, just make yourself, because you'll always feel better for it afterwards. But you have to commit, like you have to force yourself to do it. You have to.
Reading between the lines on your answer, Beth, and also trying to think back to my own story to relate to it as well, your answer to self-discipline to me sounds like trust in yourself. Like, you've done enough now that you're able to trust in yourself to override what your brain's telling you, because you've got so many examples and experiences of where you've been able to ignore what your brain's telling you, and you know from experience that you're capable of doing it. So what you have is a trust in your own self, that the brain becomes like this advisor that you can turn off and ignore. And like, I remember really vividly where I didn't have that disconnect, and what my brain told me was the truth to me. So the question I wanted to ask you, like, if someone is listening to this who is in the same position I was, which is I'm not a disciplined person, my brain is in control of my actions and what I do. Like, what are some bite-sized ways of building discipline that don't involve running 42 kilometers after a cycle and a swim? Where do we start here?
Yeah. So I think that reward is quite good. What I sometimes do is, if I really don't want to do something, but I know I should do it, I kind of make a bargain with myself. So I say, if you do this thing, you can then watch a TV show, or you can have a glass of wine, or you can go for a walk, or you can buy something. That like would be enough for me that when I was halfway through, I'd be like, I just want to get back and have my bath. I just want to get back and have my bath. Instead of it just being like a negative experience where you're like, I don't want to do it, it's going to suck. When I finish, okay, yeah, I might feel a bit better than if I didn't do it, but it's more like it's more like I just don't feel guilty that I haven't done it. If you can give yourself some kind of reward, then that makes it a bit more of a positive experience. Like, provided it's not like too much, like, you know, don't like buy loads of designer clothes, or like, you know, get drunk every time you go for a bike ride or something, you know, but like just like more.
And that might help.
Well, yeah, maybe not. But like, I think it's good to have this little bargain with yourself. Like, I really don't want to do it, but if I do it, I'll give myself this little thing. And then it makes that thing even more enjoyable. Plus, you will feel good because you've done it. Because if you, like, you know, I'm sure you can relate. You can procrastinate and procrastinate and procrastinate. And then when you finally get around to doing it, you're like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, actually. And then you feel good that you've done it. So you don't really need the reward then, because you already feel better.
A follow-up question from me as well. So, you know, you've mentioned not listening to your thoughts, or almost like pushing aside your thoughts. Do you have any practical tips on how to do that?
So the tip for me would be just keep doing it. So acknowledge that you're having these thoughts, but don't let that physically change what you are doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you push through, 9 times out of 10, you will get somewhere with whatever it is that you're pursuing. And then those thoughts are less relevant. So with triathlon, my brain is saying, you have to slow down, you have to stop. And I go, okay, I acknowledge that you're feeling like that, but I'm not going to. And then 5 kilometers in, I don't have those thoughts anymore because I feel better. I've had some food. I've seen my family on the course. You know, all these things lift you up. Same with like work. If it's a task you really hate doing, don't not do it. Like, sit there and be like, I hate this task, it's so crap. But then be like, if I keep doing it, it'll be over. And then it's over. I don't have to worry about it anymore. The thoughts are valid, but I think it's important to not let them take hold of you and physically stop you from pursuing what you're trying to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
It does. It does. And I particularly like what you're saying about just focus on them not stopping you from doing what you're doing. Right? Like that's something where you can really single-mindedly put your attention. If what you're doing right now is a run and the thoughts keep coming back like stop, 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 the one thing you have to do is not stop. Like the one thing you have to do is just continue running.
Yeah.
It has a beautiful simplicity to it. There isn't, let's reframe this thought. Let's like come up with an elaborate new mental model to deal with it. It is literally focus on the activity and acknowledge the mind, but don't let it derail you. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's brilliant.
I think as well, like, if you've committed to a goal and you really want it, then that's like, think how bad you'd feel if you didn't achieve it. Everyone deep down knows if they're capable of something or not capable of something. And hindsight is a wonderful thing, but particularly in racing, the temptation is always to slow down. Also, it's quite a big incentive that once I've finished the race and I'm no longer in the throes of emotion, will I look back and regret that, knowing deep down that I could have gone faster and it was just a choice I made to not do it. Like, that's also quite a big motivator for me. Like, I know that I'll be annoyed at myself if I give up prematurely, because that's all, it's you against you at the end of the day. That's something else I would say too. It's very important to just compare yourself to you and not other people, because you know what you're capable of and you need to be happy with what you have achieved. And it's very easy to look at other people and feel like you're not doing enough, or it doesn't matter how much you put effort in, you'll never be like them. Like, that's just a waste of time. Like, you need to just focus on you and acknowledge the thoughts, but yeah, don't let them detract, and think, if I give into this, will I regret it? Because to me, that's quite a powerful motivator as well.
Yeah, because that pain is temporary and the cheating didn't last forever.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly.
If I may just offer a positive reframe here, it could potentially also be, instead of I'm going to feel really annoyed at myself if I don't do this, it could be something along the lines of, I'm so deeply connected to this desire, and I care so much about this desire, that is more important to me right now than the relief I'd be getting from stopping or slowing down or whatever it may be. And I actually believe that more often than not, when it's super, super hard to motivate yourself to do things over and over and over again, like, I'm not talking about the occasional I'm tired today and it's pouring outside, but when the activity feels like a constant drag, more often than not, I feel like the goal, the desire behind it, might not be what you really and truly want. You know, it may be something that you think you might want. It may be something that you think sounds really cool and impressive, or whatever it may be, but there isn't that visceral, full body, yes, this is what I really and truly want. And I really believe that when you do have that full body yes, it does really help find the motivation, even when it's a particularly bad day and you're particularly tired.
Yeah, and I guess as well, like, you might learn that you don't like it and you don't want to do it again, which is also a good use of your time. But it's like going back to what I said before, like, you don't know that until you try it. It's a really good thing to learn about yourself, that you don't like doing something as a result of putting yourself through something. Like, that's really worthwhile.
And also circles back to what you said in the last answer, that it's not failure in that case, it's feedback. And that's even better.
100%. So, Beth, could you tell us about your next self-leadership practice, please?
Yeah, so the next one for me is self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
So we've spoken about self-discipline, which is where you should really try your best to commit. But then it's a bit like what you were just saying now. Self-reflection is also very important. If you have committed to a goal that you believe is something that you really want to achieve, and you have put everything into achieving that goal, and you just aren't enjoying it, or you get injured, or something means that you can't achieve that, it's very important to acknowledge that about yourself, because there are lots of people who force themselves to do things because they think that they're impressive or they should do them, and it makes them miserable. And that's not a good use of time, because probably if they took some time to reflect on how they were feeling, they would be honest with themselves and be like, actually, it's not working out for me and I'd rather try something else. To give you an example, I didn't realize until I resigned from my job to move to Angola how kind of stagnated I had felt, probably for like 2 years before. And I didn't even realize, because I had not gone through this exercise of stopping and asking myself how I was feeling. I think because it was so busy and I felt so fulfilled in my personal life, I didn't necessarily like make the time or feel like I needed to make the time to ask how I was feeling in my day job, which is where I spent most of my time, you know? And I look back now and I'm like, that it's crazy that you had to moved to Angola to realize that you didn't like your job like for 2 years. Like, why didn't you realize that sooner? And it's crazy as well because other people in my family were like, I don't think you like your job. And I'd be like, no, I'm fine. It's fine. Like, there are options for me, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, you were so right. Like, why did I waste like these 2 years, like doing something that I wasn't really enjoying? But again, it's like, I think in society now, it's so busy. Everyone's like busy, 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 busy. And it's all like how happy everyone is on social media and the holidays that everyone's going on. And you have to make the time to sit down and ask yourself how you're feeling. Do you see a future? Do you want to change things? Because your life can just pass you by, especially as you get older. Like a year proportionally gets less and less significant. So you could waste many years doing something that you hate and not realize because you think it's normal to be busy in a 9 to 5 job. I think that, yeah, society is really bad for that. I don't know why there's not more of a focus on how people feel, because I think people do better when they're happier and they feel fulfilled. And I know so many people who hated their jobs but just kept doing it because that was their option, that they felt like that was their only option. And I'm like, you don't want to get to your retirement age and be like, I hated my whole career. I wish I'd done something else or taken a break or something. As I said before, like it's such a gift to have life. So take the time to reflect and be honest with yourself. And even if you don't know what it is you want, maybe make notes like where I am now, where I think I want to be. And even just reviewing that every like 6 months or something might help you realize if something's gone well, if something's not gone well, if you think you want to do something. And I find that if I'm not sure about something, it kind of just I don't need to actively necessarily think about it. It's like over time, it just becomes clearer where I should be going. But it's like having that prompt from 6 months ago might make me feel more sure now there's been 6 months past. Like I know more about myself as a result of 6 months passing than I did at the start. So it might be clearer to me. But having that, without that prompt, I might not think about it. So it's quite useful to just jot down notes maybe every 6 months being like, here's where I'm at, here's where I maybe want to be, don't know. And then look at it and be like, oh, that's clear to me now that I do or don't want to do that.
Makes sense. I'm going to ask you an impossible question to follow up on that. So I'm going to be a bit mean. So I apologize in advance for this. I don't think there's not an off-the-shelf answer, but I'm interested to understand your thoughts because obviously you've described yourself initially as a goal-oriented person, which I relate to. We discussed in the last self-leadership practice the helpful nature of like ignoring thoughts sometimes. And we talked about pain is temporary. And on the other side of that is this potential euphoria and achievement, etc. And like I can find it really difficult sometimes to distinguish when one is this pain is what is expected and like it's part of the pursuit and it's it's a necessary pain because it's getting you towards A. And sometimes I find it really difficult to distinguish between that and now actually I just don't like doing this. And so like I wonder, like, do you have any experiences or tips that you could share as to distinguish between the two? I did promise you it was impossible, so I'll leave it with you.
Yeah, that's a bit tricky. I think that it's very beneficial talking to other people. I'm not the kind of person that copes well with internalizing things. I have to speak to people a lot. And I take a lot of the decisions that I make usually come as a result of having spoken about it with different people. And I'm not just talking about close people. Like, if I was like training for an athletic pursuit and I didn't know if I was enjoying it or not, and it was normal to feel like that, I'd probably speak to someone who'd done it before or someone who's done something similar to ask them, is this normal? Like, did you feel like this? Because 9 times out of 10, like there'll be some shared experience in there somewhere that you can get something from with somebody else. And I do that all the time. Like I need validation from other people all the time. I don't really have like a best friend. I have lots of friends, very good friends in different areas of my life. So I don't necessarily have like a constant relationship with them where I speak to them every day. But if I really needed to have a chat with them and I hadn't seen them for like a year or something, I could have a conversation with them, like ring them up, have a chat and ask them. I guess some people are quite shy and don't want to share personal feelings, but for me it's like super important that I have this ability to bounce thoughts off other people. But I also take in knowledge better when it comes from a person physically speaking to me than I'm reading it online.
Yeah. I like the importance of your answer. Go on, Anna.
I'm sorry to jump in. I just wanted to offer a quick reframe because you said that you're looking for a lot of external validation. And I don't think that's true. I think what you're saying is a lot of external information that you then use
Yeah.
to process and make your decision and ultimately validate internally, right? I don't feel it's
Although I
validation.
would ask, if I was very unsure, I would ask their opinion as well.
Mhm.
But then you're right, yeah. Like it's not like I need their opinion to make the decision for me,
Mhm.
but I would collect, yeah, it's like information, but I would collect opinions that
Mhm.
would help me then make a decision. Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense. But I actually think Anna's point builds on what I was going to say anyway, which was like the significance from your previous answer to the last practice where we discussed, I forget how we get there now, but we were discussing the idea that actually like things aren't so rosy and they're not as great as they seem on social media, and everyone's trying to build this kind of fictitious image or poster of their life. And actually, I like what you're saying here, because actually if more people took this approach in those moments, like I feel like if you did them with the right people, actually you'd have like these authentic conversations, and people would more freely express that this was hard, or I'm not sure if I'm enjoying this, or to you it may, so like the other person it looks like a pursuit of success, but then this vulnerability actually brings that down. And sometimes I feel like these answers are so simple. It's actually just through conversation with the right people, feeling confident enough to be vulnerable and open, and brings this reality to the fore. So I think it's a really important answer that you gave. So I appreciate you sharing it.
Yeah, no worries. It's funny because like I follow people on Instagram and I follow them on YouTube. And when you watch the YouTube videos of what's gone on behind the achievement that you see on Instagram, it's like you connect so much more with that person because you see how they were feeling in the moment, the struggles they got to get there, the fact that their car broke down that morning, the fact that they're actually like feeling crap today because they've got a cold, like all this stuff that like is superhuman and you can relate to. And then you're like, oh, this is normal. I feel normal. Like you don't get any of that from a picture and some words.
Yeah, it's not a still image of the trophy, is it? It's the
No,
backstory.
yeah, like 100%. But no, yeah, for me, it's, yeah, like the distinction between is it me, is it the process? I would look to other people to help me with that information.
Beautiful. And that takes us to the final self leadership practice for today. What is that, Beth?
Okay, so this is what I suck at and I need to get better at it, but I am getting better at it. But it's positive self-talk and being kind to yourself. So
I love how you led with I suck at that.
I do. I'm not good at it.
That's not positive self
Um,
talk.
The irony.
but like it's important though. I'm trying to be more aware of it and get better at it. So I can give you an example, right? I remember when I had finished my the Scottish Higher exams, which is like the ones you take before your final exams, and I'd got good results. But I knew I had to do another set of exams to apply to university, and that was going to be a lot of hard work. And my parents took me out for dinner to celebrate my exam success. And I just spent the whole time being miserable because I was so worried about having to repeat the same thing for the future. And I remember them saying to me, but why can't you be happy with what you've achieved? Like, you're doing these exams like in a year's time, you know, like just be happy with what you've achieved. And I was like, no, I can't be happy until I've gotten into university. I can't be happy with this result yet. It's not finished. And they were like, oh God, what's wrong with you? But it's something that I was not good at. And it kind of it's exhausting. Like if you push yourself very hard, you achieve things you want to achieve, but then you just move on to the next thing. You're never really giving yourself the time to be happy or like the reward you need for putting all that work in. You can burn yourself out. And then what was the point of any of it? Like it's so important to look back and see how far you've come, because often you can feel very down in the dumps, like snowed under with things. But if you just think, oh, well, where was I this time last year? Oh, I've actually come quite a long way. Oh, I feel good about myself now. Like it's very important to give yourself that time to look back at what you've achieved and be happy about what you've achieved. You need to do that because other people saying, well, for me anyway, other people saying well done is nice, but it's not as powerful as if it comes from within. Like, if I'm happy with it, then that's the best feeling, really.
For sure. I had two responses to this. One, I'm pretty confident in, but Anna can fact check me on this. I think you're the first person in how many episodes we've done of this now, Anna? Like 13, 14. The first person to bring a practice on that they're actively trying to get good at. And I think that's such a refreshing angle. So I just want to say, if I am right in this, Anna, thank you for being the first person to bring something on that they're willing to say, I suck at this. I think that's awesome. So I appreciate that. Anna, am I right?
I think
I'm
you
right.
might be. I think you might be, Josh. Yes.
I think so. So for future guests, more of that, because it's really interesting. But point number 2 is, what does this look like practically? Like, is this something that you're trying to catch in the moment when you need it? Like, is it a proactive practice? Is it reactive in the moment? Like, how are you said you had a goal, so your goal is to become better at self-talk. Like, so what is your process for trying to achieve this?
I think it's being aware of it in the first place. Like, I wasn't aware of it. Like, my parents saying to me, you've done so well, you got really good exam results. I mean, being like, that's irrelevant. Like, I wasn't even aware of that at the time, you know? Like, I look back at that person and I'm like, Jesus, you know? That's quite intense for someone to not be able to be happy with the result they've got because they're so focused on the next thing. Like, that's completely unsustainable. So I'm aware of it. And then secondly, to be honest, I think coming to Angola has helped because I see people in dire condition every day. So I already have to be, positive about my life. Like, if I can be super like frustrated and fed up about something, but then I can walk out in the street and be like, well, Beth, at least you've got like your health. You've got a loving, supportive community around you. You can leave if you want to, like there's all these things you don't really have to worry about. It's like you're reframing the negativeness into, as Anna was saying before, gratitude. And then I think from the gratitude, like that stems like personal positivity, I would say.
Yeah.
Like I'm just so much more aware now of like things that used to really irritate me. Like I can have a bit of a like temper sometimes. Like I can get quite frustrated easily about things and fly off the handle. And now, because I know that other people struggle so much more in their lives, it helps put it into context for me. So I'm less likely to have this like very overly negative outlook or reaction to something because I know that in the grand scheme of things, it's not actually that important. And really, like I'm super lucky and I've already achieved quite a lot in my life. Like I've heard it mentioned in some of your previous podcasts, people say, if I die tomorrow, would I be happy? And I can honestly say, like, I genuinely would be. Like, I feel like I've really made the most of things in my life. I feel like all the opportunities I've been given, I've taken, and I'm proud of myself for that. And it's nice to feel that. Like, I like myself as a person. I like what I'm achieving. I like my attitude, But there should be a lot more focus on look how far you've come, because that's what's astounding. If you look back just like 2-3 years ago to where you were now versus then, you'll probably be super surprised at all you've achieved in that time. And you might not necessarily even know that until you take the step back to look back and be like, yeah, well done. I did a good job, actually.
It makes a lot of sense. Like in my personal experience, I feel like it's like the blessing and curse of being a high achiever or an ambitious person, because like you're wired to move forward, as you described it. You're wired habitually to think, what's next, what's next, what's next. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. So it's actually like the practice that you're describing is actually like removing the curse and giving yourself the space and giving yourself the freedom. Yeah, it's a really cool answer.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is again gratitude, and what I'm also hearing is self-celebration, is actually taking the time and space to celebrate yourself, celebrate your wins, celebrate everything that you like about yourself. And there's some really cool exercises around that. Like the easiest is get a pen and paper and write down 10 things that you really like in yourself or that you celebrate about yourself or where you're grateful to yourself. We've heard so much about gratitude journals that are fantastic, right? But my invitation is focus on what you're grateful to yourself about. You know, what do you celebrate about yourself? What are you thanking yourself for? And even just like once a week, making a list like that, it can make a huge difference in how we view ourselves, and then ultimately the self-talk that we bring to ourselves.
Yeah. Especially if you stack them together. I did this for a period where, like, if you do it on the same bit of paper or on the same book, and it's like, if you do it every week, you know, and you look back through, say, 2-3 months, and you read them all, you end up with quite a long list, right? And like, it is that extra bit of context, which is really, really powerful.
And then sometimes if I'm like feeling super, I don't know, depressed, I just go and get my Ironman medal and I put it on and I walk around the house. And then about 5 minutes later, I feel better. So you can also do that too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
There are photos that my husband's got of me with like lots of medals on my neck, being like, so yeah.
The equivalent of walking in with the comb microphone singing into the mirror is you with your medal on and giving your post-match speech.
Sometimes you need to like tangibly hold something, you know?
Yeah.
So if that, it helps.
There's energy in the medal.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Well, on that note, we're coming to the end of our podcast. And before we wrap up, Beth, could I ask you to give us a quick recap of your 5 self-leadership practices?
Yeah, no problem. So hopefully they lead into each other quite nicely. So set the goal, work out how to get to the goal through time management, be disciplined enough to do that process that you've come up with through time management, reflect on if it's working for you, if you want to change something, if you're enjoying it, if you want to do more of it. And then when you've achieved the goal, look back and be really kind and good to yourself and feel happy about the fact that you've achieved it.
Fantastic. And may I add, even if you haven't achieved it, still be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself, yeah. You are always better off trying and failing than you are not trying at all.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Beth. It's been a real delight talking to you. Thank you for sharing all of your insights with us. By the way, if you are enjoying, please hit subscribe, and that way you'll get even more of our brilliant content. And on that note, thank you so much and see you next time.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, guys. Bye.